I should have known the day would go wrong the moment the auctioneer introduced the slightly used cosmic artifacts by kicking a crate that groaned back. But I stayed. I don't know if it was curiosity, boredom, or the fact that the station air recyclers were pumping something suspiciously euphoric into the crowd. But there I was, one human among dozens of aliens, accidentally raising my hand at the worst possible moment. The auctioneer, a lizard-skinned creature with more teeth than honesty, slammed his staff and declared, "Sold," before my brain caught up with my arm. I tried to argue, but apparently auctions in this quadrant consider objections a form of entertainment, not negotiation. The crate opened, and instead of artifacts, four women stepped out. Not human, at least not fully. Blue skin, armor that shimmered like liquid metal, and hair as bright as solar flares, and ears long, elegant, and sharper than my sense of self-preservation. They looked around with the distinct expression of people trying to understand how they'd gone from royalty, I would learn this part later, to being sold like malfunctioning cleaning robots. The tallest one, golden-haired and wearing armor that suggested she'd won more fights than I'd ever run from, studied me with slow, deliberate scrutiny. Not hostile, not grateful either. More like confused, as if I was the unexpected plot twist in her day. "You bought us?" she asked. Her voice was smooth, melodic, and far too calm for someone in a cage 5 seconds ago. "Technically," I said, clearing my throat, "it was more of an accidental gesture. A sneeze, my arm just—" "You paid 10,000 credits," another woman said, narrowing her shimmering violet eyes. "For a sneeze?" To my shame, I defended myself. It was a very strong sneeze. The crowd began dispersing once the spectacle was over. The auctioneer shoved a datapad into my hand, muttered something about no refunds, and vanished before I could ask about buyer protection plans. I looked at the four alien women, tall, armed, and definitely not thrilled, and wondered whether this quadrant had any legal definitions for massive misunderstanding. The golden-haired one stepped forward. "My name is Lyria," she said, "and since you apparently own us now—" "Absolutely not," I interrupted, hands raised so fast I nearly launched myself backward. "I'm freeing you. Consider yourselves unsold." Lyria blinked. Then her sisters blinked, a synchronized, elegant bafflement. "You bought us to free us?" "Yes." "Intentionally?" "That part is still up for debate." One of the sisters covered her mouth, shoulders shaking in a quiet laugh. Lyria exhaled through her nose, the closest thing she'd shown to amusement. "Humans are peculiar." I wasn't sure if it was a compliment, but I decided to pretend it was. We didn't stay on the auction platform long. The station's intercom blared warnings about unlicensed transactions, which sounded suspiciously like people who ruin the auctioneer's profit margins will be hunted shortly. So I guided them toward my ship, a vessel Lyria immediately described as bravely held together with wishes. "It flies," I said defensively. "So does dust," she replied, stepping inside. My ship's AI activated with a cheerful chime. "Welcome back, Captain. I see you have brought guests. 4 guests. Statistically, this will not end quietly." "Muting you," I said. "Denied. Your authority level is too low for—" I slapped the control panel until it gave up. Lyria walked the length of the main corridor, testing the floor with each step. "This vessel is practical," she said diplomatically. "That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said about it. And concerning—" "Ah, there it is." The others explored the ship with wide eyes, their long ears twitching at every creak of aging metal. Lyria, however, stopped in front of me, her expression sharpening. "You risked much to free us," she said. "We owe you thanks." "You don't owe me anything," I said quickly. "Besides, if I'm being honest, I didn't even know what I was bidding on." She tilted her head, long ears angling with the motion. "So you freed strangers without purpose." "I prefer spontaneous humanitarian impulse." A small smile curved the corner of her mouth. It was the first real sign of warmth I'd seen from her, and it caught me off guard. "Very well, human, but understand this. Our situation is more complicated than you realize." "How complicated?" I asked. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. complicated enough that your actions may already have consequences. Behind us, one of her sisters accidentally activated the ship's food dispenser, which responded by launching nutrient bars across the room like missiles. Lyria sighed. Many consequences. I had no idea then just how right she was. Lyria insisted we leave the station immediately, which sounded reasonable until I remembered the ship took a full 3 minutes to warm up. On good days. On bad days, it made noises like an elderly robot trying to stand up after a nap. Today was somewhere in between. The engines coughed, wheezed, and finally roared to life with a burst of sparks that made two of the alien sisters jump, and one reach for a blade the size of my leg. It's fine, I said, patting the console. That's just the ignition sequence. Lyria eyed the smoke. Your ship is combusting. Not combusting, expressing itself. Humans have strange standards for survival. We launched away from the station, slipping into the soft glow of a nearby nebula. The view was stunning. Ripples of violet and gold gas drifting like slow-motion lightning. But Lyria didn't seem impressed. She sat in the co-pilot seat, arms crossed, posture firm. Her sisters hovered around her, speaking in a melodic language that made my translator struggle and occasionally squeak. Finally, Lyria turned to me. You said you freed us by accident. That is unconventional. But you must understand, our presence with you will attract attention. I smiled weakly. I assumed buying people at an illegal auction might already attract attention. Not those kinds of people, she said. Worse ones. The ship's AI chimed in. Probability of pursuit, 82%. Probability of pursuit, including heavily armed hostiles, 79%. Probability of you surviving without hiding behind Lyria, 3%. I reached for the mute function again. Denied, the AI said. Lyria gave me a sideways look. Your ship mocks you. It's an equal partnership, I muttered. Before I could attempt dignity again, the proximity alarm blared. A cluster of sleek ships slid out of the nebula, their hulls painted with swirling red sigils. Lyria stiffened. Reavers, she said. Pirates. Dangerous. Unpleasant. Not good conversationalists? Fantastic, I whispered. I always wanted to die somewhere scenic. The Reaver ships locked onto us instantly. Lyria leapt from her seat so fast the air seemed to ripple. She ordered her sisters to secure the lower deck, then crouched beside me with a sharp, focused intensity that made my heart try new gymnastics. You will follow exactly what I tell you, she said. That's usually how I survive conversations. She didn't laugh. Instead, she reached over and began flipping switches with expert precision. The ship groaned as energy rerouted through systems I didn't even know existed. How do you know my ship better than I do? I asked. It tells me where it hurts. It talks to you. No, she said. It screams. The first pirate volley hit our shields and jolted the vessel so violently I nearly bit my tongue. Lyria grabbed the console and barked, Dive! I can't dive, we're in space! Downward relative to the nebula current, she clarified. I flicked the thrusters, and the ship plunged, narrowly avoiding another barrage. Lyria planted one hand on the seat beside me, steadying herself as if she'd been born in zero gravity. Fire countermeasures, she ordered. I don't have countermeasures. She pointed at a blinking button. Then what is that? Oh, that's new. I pressed it. A burst of glittering particles sprayed behind us, confusing the pirates' sensors. Lyria nodded approvingly until the ship lurched again. Something metallic rattled loose and clattered across the floor. What was that? She asked. A decorative panel. Do decorative panels normally fall off during mild turbulence? On this ship? Absolutely. The Reavers regrouped and surged after us. Lyria's eyes narrowed. She leaned close, her long ears angled sharply. We cannot outrun them, but we can outsmart them. That's encouraging. For me, yes, she said. For you, we will see. She guided my trembling hands to the navigation controls and adjusted our trajectory to skirt the nebula's densest cloud. The gases here interfere with scanners. If we enter deep enough, they will lose us. And possibly dissolve the hull, the AI added. We'll take our chances, Lyria said. I vote for not dissolving, came a shout from below deck, one of her sisters. That is not a vote, Lyria replied. That is fear. Keep holding the stabilizers. We plunged into the cloud. The nebula wrapped around the ship in sheets of sparkling gold. Alarms wailed, the AI panicked, and I screamed at least twice. But the pirate signals began to fade. "They're losing us," Lyria said. "That's excellent," I shouted. "Unless they fire blindly," the AI added. I glared at the ceiling. "Why are you like this?" We drifted deeper until the sensors went quiet. Lyria finally unclenched her jaw. "We're safe for now. You did well." I screamed the whole time. "Yes, but you screamed while following instructions." I considered that. "I'll take the compliment." She touched my shoulder lightly, a brief but unexpected gesture. "There is more you must know. Those pirates were not simply chasing random travelers. They knew who we were." "Who you were," I corrected. "I'm just an unfortunate sneezer." Her lips curved faintly, but her eyes remained serious. "Not anymore. By freeing us, you became part of something larger and more dangerous than you realize." I swallowed hard. "Define larger." "Royal level larger." "Define royal." She straightened, her long ears lifting like banners. "My sisters and I are daughters of the alien queen." I blinked, tried to speak, failed, tried again. "Well," I finally managed, "that explains the posture." And Lyria, warrior, princess, rescuer, actually laughed. The night sky above Kelethar Base shimmered like a cracked mirror as their stolen skimmer sliced through the atmosphere, its engines coughing in protest. I clung to the co-pilot seat while Soraya stood beside me, one hand gripping a rail, the other braced on my shoulder as if I were a conveniently placed stabilizer bar rather than, say, a person with bones. "Your craft makes an alarming number of dying cow sounds," she shouted over the rattle. "It's not dying," I yelled back. "It's just expressing itself." "Then your machine expresses pain." She poked the console with a taloned fingertip. "And fear." A warning light flickered. She wasn't wrong. Behind us, the other rescued sisters huddled close together, murmuring in their flowing language. Every now and then, one of them would glance my way with an expression somewhere between gratitude and the kind of confusion you get when you realize your spaceship is held together with tape and hope. Soraya bent over me to inspect the navigation display, so close that her long ears brushed my cheek, sending a tiny shiver down my spine. "You are steering us toward the patrol zone," she said. "That would be unwise." "I'm not steering," I replied. "The ship is doing that on its own." "Why?" "Because the steering system is broken." She blinked. "How many broken systems does this craft have?" "I've never counted them out loud," I said. "But if you really want to ruin your night, I can start." She stared at me, then let out a sound I'd only heard from her once. A short, sharp, amused click. A laugh, alien style. "You are hopeless," she said, "and yet effective." The skimmer suddenly dipped, scattering loose tools and one of the sisters, who yelped as Soraya grabbed her. Stabilizing them both as if it were nothing, Soraya shot me a look. "Explain why we are falling." "We're not falling," I said. "We're descending aggressively." "Your language contains many creative euphemisms for death." She dropped into the seat beside me and placed her hand over mine on the controls. Her touch was cold, steady, confident. The way she pressed the throttle made the ship respond in a way it had never responded to me, like a stubborn animal finally listening to someone who actually knew what they were doing. The engines roared, a blast of force lifting us above the patrol zone's scanners, just as a barrage of crimson beams sliced the air below us. Soraya's grip tightened. "We are detected." "I noticed." She guided the skimmer into a tight roll, and for a moment gravity spun like a drunk carousel. One of the sisters screamed. I might have screamed too, but I'll deny it forever. The ship burst through a cloud layer, finally leveling out into cleaner air. Only then did Soraya let her hand slip from mine. "We must reach the mountain refuge before the royal hunters surround us." "Royal hunters," I repeated. "As in, your royal hunters?" "They serve my mother," she said. "They are very loyal. And they want to kill me because—" "You purchased us," Soraya answered simply. "To the royal court, that makes you a potential slaver, abductor, or spy." I swallowed. "But I freed you." "Yes, which complicates their reasoning, but not their orders." The sisters behind us nodded solemnly. One added, "They do not enjoy revising orders." Great. The skimmer's fuel gauge dipped dangerously low, which I pretended not to see. Soraya noticed anyway. "We will not reach the refuge at this rate." "I know," I admitted, "but there is one place we can reach." I pulled up the coordinates, an abandoned terraforming station on the ridge. It was half collapsed, full of faulty gravity vents, and extremely illegal to enter. It was also the closest thing we had to shelter. Soraya studied the image. "This structure appears unstable." "Same as us," I said. "At least we'll blend in." Her long ears twitched, her version of an exasperated sigh. "Very well. Take us there." The station came into view as the skimmer sputtered its last breath. Soraya braced the sisters while I wrestled the ship downward. We slammed onto the landing pad, or what remained of it, with a screech so violent it probably woke ancient ghosts. The engines died. Silence followed. Soraya turned to me, eyes glowing faintly in the dark. "We must prepare for pursuit." "Do we have time to breathe?" I asked. "Yes," she said. "One breath, maybe two." The sisters scrambled out, whispering nervously as the wind whipped through the station's broken beams. Soraya stepped to my side, her armor catching the moonlight glow from the planet's twin suns. "You continue to risk your life for us," she said quietly. "Hey," I replied. "I'm just trying not to die in the most embarrassing way possible." Another alien laugh, a soft click. Then her expression hardened. "Stay close to me. The hunters will arrive soon." Lightning cracked across the horizon, illuminating approaching shadows. Fast, disciplined, and unmistakably armed. Soraya's hand settled on the hilt of her blade, and for the first time I realized she wasn't just a princess. She was a warrior, and I was standing in the middle of a storm she'd spent her entire life preparing for. Wind hissed through the shattered corridors of the abandoned terraforming station, carrying the metallic scent of ozone and old machinery. Somewhere far below us, the gravity vents groaned, cycling unpredictably, sometimes pulling, sometimes pushing, sometimes doing something that really shouldn't be possible, according to the laws of physics or basic workplace safety. Soraya moved ahead with the fluid confidence of a seasoned warrior, her armor catching glints of pale blue light from the flickering emergency panels. The sisters followed close behind, muttering nervously. I stayed at the rear, partly to watch our backs and partly because one of the vents had tugged me sideways earlier, and I didn't trust this place not to do it again. "We need a defensible position," Soraya said, scanning the hall with ears perked. "We need a working exit door," I replied. "Preferably one that doesn't suck us into a gravity blender." Soraya gave the malfunctioning vent a wary glance. It responded by making a sound like a whale choking on a trumpet. "This structure is unwell." "Yeah, well, join the club." Something clattered in the distance, metal on metal, sharp and rhythmic. The sisters stiffened. Soraya raised a hand to silence them and motioned for us to follow her deeper inside. "Hunters," she whispered. "Their stride is unmistakable." "Honestly," I whispered back, "everything in this station clatters. Could be a pipe, could be a ghost, could be the vent having an existential crisis." She tilted her head. "Do your people truly believe buildings become angry spirits?" "Only when the plumbing gets involved." The noise grew louder. "Not a pipe. Definitely not a ghost." Soraya gestured us into a small maintenance room, illuminated only by a dying overhead beam. The sisters huddled in a corner, long ears trembling. I tried to noiselessly close the sliding door, but it resisted with the stubbornness of a toddler refusing bedtime. I pushed harder. The door let out a screech. Soraya winced. "You have alerted them." "I haven't alerted them," I began. Then footsteps fastened into a sprint outside. "Okay, I alerted them." The door finally snapped shut, locking us in. Soraya activated a small hovering orb, one of their techno-glyph tools. Blue symbols shimmered in the air, rotating around her palm as she whispered commands. With a gentle hum, the orb projected a distortion field around the room, bending incoming scans. "Will that hide us?" I asked. "For a short time," she said. "Unless they use scent trackers." "Scent tracking? Seriously? I didn't shower today. That's basically biological sabotage. You smell like fear and burnt engine coolant." "That's just my cologne." One of the sisters stifled a nervous giggle. Another shushed her. Footsteps stopped right outside the door. A shadow moved beneath the crack, tall, imposing, unmistakably armored. Soraya held her breath. I tried to hold mine, but immediately regretted it and wheezed. She elbowed me silently. The shadow lingered, listening. My lungs begged for mercy. Then a distant clang echoed through the station. The hunter moved away, following the distraction. I exhaled so loudly the sisters all glared at me. We cannot stay here, Soraya whispered. This room will not shield us long, and we must reach the subcore chamber, the one place their tracking systems cannot penetrate. Why can't they penetrate it? Because the chamber was built to stabilize dimensional fields. Any scanning wave is absorbed or reflected unpredictably. So, basically, a cosmic echo chamber of confusing nonsense. Yes, she said, which makes it perfect for hiding you. Just me? You are the priority. I blinked. Wait, you mean you're risking everything, all of you, to protect me? Soraya hesitated. Her armor dimly reflected the trembling lights. By ancient decree, the daughters of the queen must protect the one who liberates them from bondage. That seems like a very strangely specific tradition. It is. My people value specificity. Another distant thud rattled the walls. Soraya opened the maintenance door just a crack and peeked out. We go now, she murmured. We slipped into the hallway. The station lights flickered violently, creating brief windows of darkness. Every few seconds, the gravity fluctuated, causing us to either drift or lurch. At one point, I hovered a full meter off the ground before Soraya yanked me back by my belt. Stay grounded, she warned. I'm trying. We reached the central stairwell, a spiraling descent into humming machinery and dim blue glow. Soraya guided the sisters first, blade drawn, eyes sharp. I followed, trying not to trip on the uneven metal steps. Halfway down, a cold voice echoed from above. Princess Soraya. We froze. A hunter stood on the landing, armor dark and adorned with royal sigils, visor gleaming like a predator's eye. By order of the crown, he said, the human must be surrendered. Soraya stepped forward. He is under my protection. Then you violate the queen's mandate. Then the queen may speak to me herself. The hunter raised his weapon. Soraya raised her blade. I raised my hands, mostly in panic. Before the hunter could fire, the gravity suddenly failed completely. All of us shot upward. Hunter, princess, sisters, me, floating like confused balloons. Great, I yelled. Now we die in zero gravity. Soraya spun gracefully and kicked off the wall, colliding with the hunter midair. They tumbled, grappling silently. I flailed uselessly, drifting toward a ceiling vent. One of the sisters grabbed my ankle and pulled me back down just as the gravity snapped on again, slamming all of us to the floor. The hunter didn't rise. Soraya stood over him, breath steady. Move, she said. More will come. We hurried the last steps into the subcore chamber. The door sealed behind us with a heavy clang, and for the first time in hours, silence wrapped around us. Soraya touched my shoulder gently. You're safe. For now. For now, I repeated. That's comforting. But the look in her eyes, equal parts determination and something softer, made me believe it anyway. The subcore chamber hummed like a giant mechanical heartbeat, its walls alive with shifting patterns of blue and violet energy that crawled across the metal like living veins. The sisters settled along the curved benches, catching their breath, while Soraya paced slowly around the central console, her fingers grazing the technoglyph symbols that rose and faded like fireflies. I sat on a crate that looked suspiciously unstable and tried to look confident. I failed. The crate creaked like it was writing its will. We need to restore the stabilizers, Soraya said. Without them, the hunters can eventually triangulate our position. Triangulate? Here? In the chamber that eats scans like cosmic popcorn? Yes, even this place has limits. Fantastic, I muttered. Just when I thought we found the one room in the galaxy that doesn't want us dead. One of the sisters, Lyra, I think, tilted her head. Human humor is very confusing. Does he joke more when afraid? Soraya didn't look up. Constantly. That's unfair, I said. I also joke when hungry. Their ears twitched in unison, which I'd learned was the alien equivalent of trying not to laugh. Soraya finally stopped pacing and faced me. The stabilizer coil is several levels below us. I cannot repair it alone. Someone must remain here to maintain the distortion field while someone else comes with me. The sisters all looked at me. Oh, great, I said. The human gets voluntold again. Soraya offered her hand. You are safest with me. I stood, wobbling only slightly because the crate sighed in relief. All right, but if any more gravity traps try to murder me, I want hazard pay. Your compensation is survival. Wow, generous. As we stepped out of the chamber, the energy barrier sealed behind us, leaving the sisters in a violet glow. The hallway ahead was dim, lit only by strips of pulsating blue light that flickered like broken neon signs. Soraya moved quietly, blades sheathed for the moment, her armor shimmering faintly with each controlled breath. So, the hunter from earlier, I whispered. You sure he wasn't, important? She shrugged. He had a name. I do not remember it. That's harsh. We met once at a political ceremony. He stepped on my foot. Okay, that's fair. We descended a narrow maintenance ladder. Every few meters the station groaned, as if complaining about being awake. When we reached the stabilizer level, the air grew noticeably warmer, carrying a faint electrical tingle across my arms. Lights sputtered, consoles blinked, panels hung open like wounded metal ribs. This looks fine, I lied. It looks like a nest, Soraya corrected. A nest of what? Please say kittens. The answer arrived in the form of a low chittering noise behind us. Sharp, rapid, multiplied. We spun around. 3 small mechanical creatures scuttled across the wall, metallic claws tapping like impatient drumsticks, their glowing red eyes fixed on us. Oh no, I whispered. Spider crab robot things. Maintenance drones, Soraya said as she drew her blade. Corrupted by the Hunter network. One leapt toward us. Soraya sliced it cleanly in half before it even reached the ground. Another lunged at me, and I did what any proud human warrior would do. I screamed, ducked, and accidentally punched it in the eye. It bounced off the wall, stunned. I meant to do all of that, I said, gasping. Your techniques are unpredictable, Soraya said. Thanks, I think. The last drone scrambled onto the ceiling, its claws digging into the metal. Soraya tossed me a small cylinder. Press the top. What does it? It exploded into a blinding flash of blue light, knocking the drone loose. It fell and twitched until Soraya stepped on it with a decisive crunch. You could have warned me, I said, rubbing my eyes. It was more effective this way. I'm adding that to the list of things you say that terrify me. We reached the stabilizer coil, a massive cylindrical engine wrapped in swirling tendrils of cracked energy. Sparks leapt like angry insects. Soraya knelt, pulling out a set of technoglyph tools. Hold this, she said, handing me a glowing rod. What does it do? It attracts electrical discharge. Why do I have it? Because I need both hands. I held it as far from my body as possible. If I die, haunt me. That sentence is incorrect. You know what I mean? She worked swiftly, weaving shimmering symbols into the shattered core. Energy rippled through the chamber. A bright burst of light flashed, and the coil snapped back into alignment with a thunderous hum. The floor vibrated as systems rebooted in a cascading sweep of blue. It is done, Soraya said, rising. Great, I said. Now can I throw this lightning magnet away? Gently. I gently threw it. The panels around us lit up. The hum steadied. The temperature cooled. For a moment, everything felt almost normal. Then the lights shifted to a warning red. Soraya turned toward me, eyes narrowing. They found us. Footsteps echoed in the corridor above. Multiple sets, synchronized and heavy. I swallowed. How many is they? At least a dozen, she said. Oh, that's too many. She stepped close, her voice steady despite the rising danger. Stay behind me. I will protect you. I know, I said, surprising myself with the conviction in my voice. She smiled softly, just for a heartbeat. Then the ceiling hatch burst open. The ceiling hatch didn't just open. It detonated downward in a shower of sparks and shredded metal, raining fragments that pinged off the stabilizer coil like hail on a tin roof. I barely had time to yelp before Soraya yanked me behind a support pillar, her arm curling protectively around my chest. Hunters dropped through the breach one by one, their heavy boots clanging as they landed in perfect, ominous synchronization. If they weren't trying to kill us, I would have admired their choreography. There are a lot of them, I whispered. Yes. Like, too many. Yes. Just making sure we agree on the number of too many. Soraya stepped forward, blade drawn, her armor brightening with pale blue runes that pulsed like a heartbeat. The hunters fanned out, weapons aimed. One of them pointed directly at me, which felt rude considering I'd done nothing except exist. Human, he said through his modulated visor. Surrender. I vote no, I said immediately. Soraya lifted her chin. He is under my protection. Then you will fall with him. That is also unacceptable, she replied. I leaned toward her. You know, diplomacy is always an option. It is. They have declined it by pointing weapons. Fair. Without warning, one hunter lunged. Soraya met him mid-stride, blades clashing with a crackle of energy that rippled across the room. The others rushed in, moving like a single organism. Soraya pushed me behind the pillar again. Stay, she commanded. I'm not a pet. Then stop doing things that require rescuing. That's harsh but accurate. She spun into the fray, her movements impossibly fluid, each strike a flash of blue, each step a precise evasion. The hunters countered with synchronized strikes, their energy blades slicing arcs through the air. Sparks showered the floor. The stabilizer coil throbbed with rising power, as if the station itself was reacting to the chaos. I peeked out long enough to see Soraya disarm one hunter with a graceful twist, kick another into the wall, and then duck under a sweeping blow. I also peeked out long enough to immediately regret it when a disruptor blast scorched the pillar a few inches above my head. You're aiming wrong, I yelled. He's the tall blue one. No, Soraya shouted, blocking two simultaneous strikes at once. Do not encourage them. Another blast hit the floor near my feet. I scrambled sideways, tripping over a stray cable and hitting the ground with all the grace of a tranquilized giraffe. A hunter advanced toward me. I held up my hands. Wait, I'm fragile. Very clean bones. Break easily. He didn't care. But before he could grab me, one of the sisters' technoglyph drones zipped through the ceiling gap, buzzing like an angry metallic bumblebee. It rammed the hunter at full speed, knocking him off balance. More drones followed, half a dozen glowing spheres, weaving chaotic patterns of blue light. Soraya, send help! One sister's voice echoed from the chamber above. Bless you all, I shouted. Also, please don't hit me with the glowing bee balls. They didn't, surprisingly. The drones swirled around the hunters, firing bursts of harmless but blinding light. Soraya took advantage, striking low and fast, sweeping legs from under armored bodies. The hunters regrouped, shielding their visors. This is our chance, Soraya called. Move. Move where? Away from here. That's not specific enough. But she grabbed my arm, pulling me toward an access door near the rear of the chamber. Two hunters blocked the way. Soraya slid between them with lightning precision, her blade flashing in a tight arc that disarmed one and sent the other stumbling back. The door slid open with a protesting groan. We darted through it into a narrow maintenance tunnel, lit only by flickering red emergency strips. Soraya sealed the door behind us and engaged the manual lock. Will that stop them? I asked. No. Oh, good, just checking. We raced down the tunnel, the metal floor vibrating under our feet as the station trembled with chaotic energy. Far behind us, faint metallic pounding echoed, hunters forcing the door. Soraya, I panted. Remind me again why they want me? I mean, I get I'm charming, but this is excessive. It is not you personally, she said between breaths. It is what you represent. That's somehow worse. You liberated royal bloodlines. It disrupts the hierarchy. You create instability. I'd rather create sandwiches. Too late. We reached a junction where the tunnel split in three directions. Soraya paused, scanning with her technoglyph device. Three holographic paths lit up. Two in red, one in blue. Blue means safe, I guessed. No, blue means least fatal. Wonderful. We sprinted down the blue tunnel, ducking under loose cables and leaping over fallen panels. At the end of the passage, a circular hatch waited. Soraya spun the manual release wheel, metal groaning as it unlocked. On the other side was an open platform overlooking a vast chamber filled with giant rotating rings of energy, like a mechanical star frozen mid-explosion. "What is this?" I whispered. "The dimensional transit core," Soraya said. "That sounds dangerous." "It is. That sounds like our only option." "It is." Behind us, metal crashed, hunters breaching the tunnel door. Soraya turned to me, her long ears sharpening with focus. "We crossed the rings." "Cross them? How? On foot?" "Yes. This is the worst cardio I've ever done." She smiled faintly. "Come. Trust me." Hunters poured into the tunnel. I grabbed her hand, and we ran straight toward the impossible light. The moment we stepped onto the rotating energy ring, every instinct in my body screamed that this was a terrible idea. The platform vibrated beneath our feet, humming with a frequency that made my teeth tingle. The rings spun around one another like colossal gears of light, each arc shifting direction unpredictably, distorting space with shimmering ripples. I held Soraya's hand in a death grip, which she tolerated with only mild amusement. "Do not look down," she said. I looked down. Beneath the transparent energy plating lay a swirling abyss of warped gravity, objects stretched like taffy, flashes of color twisting in impossible patterns. I yanked my gaze back up immediately. "That's not a floor," I gasped. "That's a physics violation." "It is stable enough, mostly." "Mostly is not comforting." Behind us, hunters poured onto the platform, their silhouettes cutting sharp against the luminous chamber. Their weapons crackled as they approached. Soraya tightened her grip. "Stay close," she said. "Step when I step." "Like dancing?" "Yes, except if we misstep, we die." "Worst date ever." She didn't deny it. We stepped onto the next ring, its surface shifting like liquid glass under our boots. The moment my foot touched it, the world tilted sideways. My stomach lurched. Gravity flickered. Soraya steadied me with a quick arm around my waist. "Focus forward," she instructed. "Do not let the core disorient you." "That's impossible. It's disorienting on purpose." A hunter leapt onto the ring behind us and immediately flew upward, flipping helplessly until he vanished into the distorted void. I blinked. "Okay," I said. "That is slightly comforting." We leapt to the next ring. It spun faster than the others, rotating in a wide arc. The air around it shimmered with pale threads of energy, brushing against my skin like static whispers. Soraya navigated it with graceful confidence, while I resembled a terrified wind-up toy barely maintaining balance. Another hunter landed, this one managing to stay upright by anchoring his boots with magnetic clamps. He raised his weapon, aiming directly at me. I froze. Soraya didn't. She grabbed my shoulder, shoved me down, and hurled her blade with a fierce snap of her wrist. It spun through the glowing air, struck the hunter's weapon clean out of his hands, ricocheted off the ring's edge, and flew back toward us. She caught it without even looking. "That was ridiculously cool," I whispered. She allowed herself the smallest smile. "I had good teachers." "You can brag a little. You earned it." The next jump was the biggest, onto a ring that rotated vertically like an upright wheel. Soraya stepped first, her body moving with such precision that she seemed weightless. I followed by not thinking about it at all, which was the only way I managed to land without collapsing. Hunters reached the previous ring, advancing quickly now that they'd adapted to the instability. Energy bolts flew past us, distorting into spirals as the chamber bent their path. One shot exploded close enough to ruffle my hair. "Hey!" I shouted. "I just trimmed that!" "Move!" Soraya ordered. We sprinted, or rather, she sprinted, and I flailed bravely, across the vertical ring, its surface shifting orientation every few steps. At one point, we were running sideways along the inner curve, the chamber tilting around us like a giant rotating tunnel. My brain tried to exit my skull. "Soraya," I yelled over the roar of energy, "if we survive this, I am never letting you choose the transportation route again. You agreed to follow me." "I didn't agree to gravity gymnastics. There is a difference." She didn't respond because a hunter landed directly in front of us. His armor crackled with stabilizing fields, allowing him to stand firm on the shifting ring. He swung a massive energy staff at Soraya, who parried with her blade. The force reverberated through the ring, sending a jolt up my legs. Soraya and the hunter clashed again, energy sparking with each strike. Their movements a storm of precision and brute force. I dodged backward, narrowly avoiding a stray arc of electricity. "Can I help?" I shouted. "Stay alive," she replied. "Not the instructions I was hoping for." The hunter lunged, nearly overpowering her. Instinct, or stupidity, which is similar, kicked in. I grabbed a loose chunk of metal plating and hurled it at the hunter's helmet. It bounced off with an anticlimactic ping. He turned toward me annoyed. "Oh no," I said. "That was a mistake." But Soraya used the distraction. She pivoted, sweeping his legs out from under him. He tumbled off the ring, vanishing into the warped void below. She grabbed my hand again. "The core exit is ahead. Hurry." Ahead, a final ring rotated slowly, its center opening into a shimmering doorway of pale blue light. A dimensional conduit. The air around it hummed with intensity. We raced toward it as more hunters jumped onto the rings behind us. Energy blasts illuminated the chamber. The rings shook under the barrage. Soraya squeezed my hand, pulling me ahead of her. "Jump!" she commanded. I didn't think. I jumped into the light. For a heartbeat, I felt weightless, suspended in a warm, humming blur. Then Soraya crashed into me from behind, her arms wrapping around my shoulders as the conduit swallowed us whole. Sound and color twisted, gravity inverted. My stomach filed a formal complaint, and then, suddenly, everything snapped still. We tumbled onto smooth marble, breathless. I stared up at a vaulted ceiling of crystalline arches. Soraya exhaled slowly beside me. "We made it," I whispered. "Yes," she said softly. Then she glanced around the glittering hall, and her expression changed. "We have arrived," she murmured, long ears tilting with tension, in the heart of the royal palace. The return journey to the palace felt strangely quiet, as if the corridors themselves were holding their breath. The soft pulse of the crystalline walls cast glimmers over Lyra's armor as she walked beside me, blue skin catching every shard of light like living nebula dust. The sisters followed close behind, whispering to one another in their fluid, melodic tongue, probably debating whether I was brave, stupid, or some exotic mix of both. My vote leaned toward the latter. A pair of guards bowed as we passed, though the gesture seemed half-hearted, like they weren't sure whether to salute me or escort me straight to the nearest exit before I caused more political chaos. "You're making them nervous," I whispered to Lyra. She tilted her long ears forward, amused. "They fear you might break another sacred protocol. You are unpredictable. I prefer the term creatively flexible. You freed royal prisoners and insulted a planetary council within the same week. See? Consistency." Her laugh echoed lightly in the hall, and despite everything, wars, queens, assassins, gravity fields trying to crush me, I felt lighter hearing it. Still, there was tension beneath the surface. We were heading to face the one person who could decide the future of this planet, and mine. The throne chamber's doors parted like massive petals. The alien queen sat upon her living throne, a structure woven from luminous vines that pulsed with the rhythm of her breath. Her gaze locked onto me instantly, sharp and ancient, the kind of stare that made me wonder if she could see my entire internet search history. Lyra stepped forward. "Mother, the traitor stands exposed. The Nexus Council has withdrawn their agents. Our people are safe." The queen nodded, then turned her cosmic gaze to me. "And you, human, you brought disorder, risk, and salvation to my daughters." I coughed, trying not to sound like a terrified squirrel. I didn't plan the first two. The last one I tried really hard on." The queen actually smiled. Barely, but enough to make the guards look like they might faint. "You acted from instinct, not ambition. Few would have freed slaves without seeking reward." I opened my mouth to reply, but Lyra spoke first, stepping closer to me, her voice steadier than I'd ever heard it. "He protected us. He stood with us. And I ask that he remain under my guardianship." That last line echoed through the chamber. Guardianship. On this planet, it meant something between a vow, a bond, and, well, a cosmic marriage certificate waiting to happen. My heart tried to escape via my throat. The queen studied her daughter, then me. You choose this human? Lyra's yellow hair shimmered as she nodded. Yes. And you, human, do you accept this bond? Every eye in the chamber pinned me in place. Soldiers, sisters, floating biolights, even the throne vines seemed to lean in like gossiping ants. I thought about everything that had happened, about the fear, the madness, the chaos, about Lyra standing in front of blaster fire for me, about the way she looked at me like I wasn't just a lost idiot from a distant planet, but someone who mattered. Yeah, I said quietly. I do. A warm pulse flowed through the chamber as the queen lifted her hand, sealing the bond in a flare of soft bioluminescent light. It washed over my skin, warm and strangely comforting, like stepping into sunlight after a cold night. It is done, the queen declared. Human, you are no longer merely a visitor. You are now part of our lineage. Lyra turned to me, long ears lifting, eyes bright with a mix of pride and something softer. I hope you're ready, she whispered. Royal life is complicated. I freed a bunch of alien princesses by accident and survived 3 assassination attempts, I whispered back. How much more complicated can it get? Lyra smirked. You have no idea. She took my hand, warm despite her armor, and together we stepped out of the throne room as the vines closed behind us. For the first time since arriving on this world, I didn't feel like a stranger. I felt like I belonged, tangled in a story far bigger than I ever expected, standing beside someone who made all the danger, chaos, and cosmic insanity worth it. And deep inside, I knew this was just the beginning.